For more than 90 years, the Ohio Farm Bureau has provided substantial benefits to farmers and non-farmers alike. Farmers feed, shelter, clothe, and fuel the world. Support Ohio farming by becoming a Champaign County Farm Bureau member or renewing your membership today.
Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of the Urbana Leader. Today we have some political guests, and I'm P.T. Thompson, and with me is Alice Robinson Bond. Could start off, we'd just like to know why you want to be the Champaign County Prosecutor.
Okay, thank you, P.T. Thank you for having me here this afternoon. I've been around Mechanicsburg all my life. I was born and raised in Mechanicsburg. My family grew up here. I grew up here. Went to high school here. All of my friends and their family are still here, and I love this community. This was my home when I was growing up. It's still my home. I care about what goes on here in this county. Nick Salvaggia is the current county prosecutor. He is going to run for Judge Wilson's spot because Judge Wilson has aged out. He is not able to run again. And as far as I know, nobody's running against Nick, so that's a good thing. He's going to be a great judge. But we need someone with experience to step into Nick's shoes and to help protect the county and work with law enforcement when it comes to serious crimes. And I care about what happens to this county. I love the people here. It's in my blood, and I want to take the experiences and education that I've gained and bring it back here home where I love.
Okay. Well, you're from Mechanicsburg, and we have a lot of family ties. You're good friends with my aunt. You guys graduated high school together, and you're still friends, even though she's in Florida. But, I have to ask, I've seen it in the papers, we've all read about it, and I kind of just want to know, I want to know your side of the story, kind of dispel anything that might be fake or false that's in the papers.
Okay.
So if you could just tell us a little bit about your side.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about that as well. Basically, there's two different parts to this, and the first part is back in October, the Board of Elections took a look at my residency issue, and then the Board of Appeals took a look at it as well. And the Board of Appeals looked at my family situation, my living arrangements, the law, and the Board of Appeals found that I'm a valid resident and a valid voter here in Champaign County. And that issue was whether or not I was permitted to vote in the November 2011 election. And the Court of Appeals found that I was a valid voter, and I knew that they would because I'm a lawyer. I also know the law, and I've been voting here in Champaign County. I think the last time I voted in another county was back in 2009, so I've been voting here for a while. So the Court of Appeals agreed with me, and I voted in November, and sometime in December, the Board of Elections asked the Supreme Court to take a look at that decision that the Court of Appeals had already made. And they're allowed to ask for an appeal. That was certainly fine. So the matter is now before the Supreme Court of whether or not I was a resident in September and should have voted in November of last year. And the Supreme Court just last week took that off of the active appeal calendar and put it on what they call their mediation calendar. That's where they want me to sit down with the Board of Elections in kind of a formal, informal setting over at the Supreme Court and see if we can't resolve this issue because it has to do with whether or not I should have voted back in November. So that's issue number one. And I'm confident that I voted correctly in November, that I've been voting correctly the last couple of years. But that doesn't have anything to do with the issue now as to whether or not I'm a proper candidate for Champaign County Prosecutor. I filed my petitions, I got all the signatures I needed, I presented them to the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections certified that petition, sent it over to the Secretary of State, and under Ohio law, if you want to contest someone's candidacy, you have so many days after the certification to file what's called a protest. Nobody, no person, no entity has filed any kind of protest, and the time to do that's already gone. So my candidacy is solid at this point. So They're basically two different issues, whether I should have voted back in November and whether I'm a proper candidate here now, and I'm confident that I'm on the right side of both of those issues.
Okay. Well, you know, that's just one thing that we kind of want the voters to make that decision themselves, and we appreciate you coming forth and, you know, giving us your side of the story. Is, you know, hopefully that will urge voters to vote with who they feel is, you know, the most qualified candidate. And, you know, we're confident that you'll be on the ballot too. Okay, and then one thing we want to kind of touch on is, you know, how do you feel that you're the most qualified candidate for prosecutor?
Thank you. I appreciate that question as well. I've been a career prosecutor for more than 25 years. When I first got out of law school back in 1985, that's been probably a little bit more than 25 years, but I started prosecuting in Madison County. And in Madison County, just like Champaign County, it's a small county with a county seat, but mostly rural. And there was the elected prosecutor and 2 assistants. And so everybody did a little bit of everything. We didn't specialize back then. So I got to do the drunk driving cases and the bar fights, but also the drug trafficking cases and the felonious assaults that happened out in the prisons in Madison County. And I did homicide cases, and I represented township trustees and elected county office holders, and you know, from the very minor crimes to the very major crimes, and all of the civil side of prosecution as well. And I did that for a number of years, and at the time, out of the 3 of us, the elected prosecutor and 2 assistants, I was the only woman. And back then, back in the 80s, the domestic violence cases and child abuse cases kind of went to the female prosecutor. So I did a lot of those type of cases. And not wanting to let those particular crime victims down, I did a lot of studying and took a lot of training on those particular types of cases because they're particularly hard. Because sometimes the victims are reluctant to come forward because of all kinds of family pressure. And I got pretty good at doing those cases. I probably did over 100 jury trials during my time in Madison County. As a result of me becoming kind of specialized in that particular area, Betty Montgomery was the Attorney General at that point, and she was looking for someone to head up her child abuse unit. It was called the Rapid Response Team, and it was a unit made up of a prosecutor, a manager at the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, BCI, and a social worker, victim advocate type person. So the 3 of those people were a team, and she hired me to head up that team. So we would go around throughout the state. So I left the Madison County Prosecutor's Office, went to the State Attorney General's office, and what our team did was we would go throughout the state when local agencies would ask for help. And it might be a situation where the mayor's cousin was a suspect. It might be a situation where there were a number of victims, perhaps a daycare situation, where there were a number of victims in the situation. It might be a situation where there were more than 1 suspect, or it might be a situation where it was a little one traffic light town and the local law enforcement agencies just didn't have anybody specialized to handle these kind of tough cases. But for whatever reason, they'd call out our unit and we'd go throughout the state and investigate the cases and prosecute them. And so I was the head of that unit and did that for a few years under Betty. And then Jim Petro became the next Attorney General. I moved over to the crime victim section where I did crime victims compensation. And what that is, that's if someone's a victim of crime and because of the crime they're not able to work and so they have lost income, or because of the crime they have medical expenses that aren't covered by their insurance, or because of a homicide, a spouse and children are left without the breadwinner's income for the next 20 years. We were able, in the crime victims compensation part of that section, to provide money to those family members to help make up for what the crime had taken out of their pocket. So for a number of years there, I did crime victims compensation, and I was then promoted from Assistant Attorney General to Senior Assistant Attorney General to Assistant Chief of the section. Now the section itself wasn't just compensation. It also did Amber Alerts. It did federal and state grants to domestic violence shelters, rape crisis centers, child abuse centers, county victim advocates. Nick has 2 victim advocates that are funded through those funds. We drafted legislation. I testified before the House and the Senate on crime victim issues. Anything and everything that had to do with victim matters. I was elected president of the Ohio Professional Society on the Abuse of Children. There's a special committee for the Ohio Academy of Pediatrics. It's their child abuse committee. It's composed of the expert doctors from most of the children's hospitals in the state that deal with shaken baby issues and those type of tough cases. And that committee asked me to serve on their committee to assist them with preparing cases. So I did a lot of stuff involving domestic violence, child abuse, drug trafficking cases, felonious assaults, homicides, a lot of things like that with Jim Petra there at the Attorney General's office. And things were swimmingly along fine there, and I was the assistant chief. We had about 80 staff members. And then as statewide politics go, the next fella came in, and it was Mr. Dan, and he was of a different party than the folks I'd worked with before. And he wanted his own people in there, so he told me to go find a new job. So at that point, I still wanted to continue with this kind of work because I'm a career prosecutor. This is what I'm passionate about. So I went to the Licking County Prosecutor's office, where once again, I worked grand jury, jury trials, Court of Appeals cases, Supreme Court cases, Children's Services cases, you know, all the same type of things that I had done earlier with Madison County. And so I did that for the 4 years, for that 4-year time period. And then Mr. DeWine got elected to Attorney General. And he asked me to come back to the Attorney General's office. And when I left as Assistant Chief of the Crime Victim Section. He invited me back to serve as Chief of the Crime Victim Section. So when I came back, I got to head up that unit. So not only was I doing the same things that I was doing before, but I also got to serve on the Sexual Assault KIT Commission. I got to work on his statewide child abuse initiative and a whole lot of other, you know, issues that have to do with crime victims in many different capacities. And that's what I've been doing over the last year. Now, the Attorney General's office has a rule that if you are a staff member for the Attorney General, you can't run for a partisan position. So I'm looking at the situation where Nick is not going to be prosecutor anymore, and there's a vacancy, and someone with experience needs to step in and fill that vacancy. But I really like my job with the Attorney General's office, so I had to weigh and did a lot of thinking, a lot of praying to decide what should I do. And I decided that I was going to run for county prosecutor. So I resigned from the Attorney General's office because of the internal rule. It wasn't a law, it was an internal rule that you couldn't stay there. So for the last month, I've been back in the Licking County Prosecutor's office because they will have the opportunity to run for Champaign County Prosecutor. And the reason that I think that I am the best qualified candidate for Champaign County Prosecutor is that I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm passionate about it. I'm committed about it. I am not just an experienced prosecutor, but I teach other prosecutors and law enforcement. I'm a certified trainer at the Ohio Peace Officers Training Academy. I've taught multiple times at the Ohio Prosecuting Attorneys Association. I'm a certified instructor for the National District Attorneys Association. So not only do I have regular experience prosecuting, I have a lot of expertise on a local, state, and national level as well. Last year I was elected to the Board of Directors of the National Association of Crime Victims Compensation Board. So I'm recognized not only locally, statewide, but also nationally for the work that I've done for crime victims. And I like to be able to take those experiences and the knowledge that I've gained and really bring them back to serve the people that helped me to become who I am, to pay back to the community, and to help protect my family, the family of my friends, and their neighbors and my neighbors in the county that I love.
Well, we thank you for coming on, Alice, and giving us your side and telling us your qualifications and everything. And we just thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate it, and I would like to say that I do have a web page that goes into more detail about some of these matters. So if someone wants to check out a little bit more detail, it's www.alicerobinsonbond.com. AliceRobinsonbond.com, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you, PG.
Thank you. When we come back, we'll have Kelly Evans Wilson.
The Urbana Leader is sponsored in part by the Depot Coffee House, a gathering place for locals, a resting place for bicyclists, and a haven for history and railroad buffs. Located 6 blocks west of Monument Square on Miami Street in Urbana, the coffee house can be found in a refurbished 1890s train station on the Simon Kenton Bike Trail. Free Wi-Fi, fresh baked goods, local artwork, and good conversation can be found every day of the week at the Depot.
Welcome back. With me I have Kelly Evans Wilson. She's a candidate for Champaign County Commissioner. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you. Welcome.
We'd like to start off why do you want to be Champaign County Commissioner?
Great question to start with. Thanks. Probably 3 reasons really are why I want to be the next Champaign County Commissioner. I have a desire to do this, have a strong belief in our community, and feel like I have the best skill set of all the candidates. So I have a desire. I've always wanted to enter elected public service. You know, a lot of folks want to be an accountant or want to be a teacher or a doctor. And for me, I've always actually wanted to enter public service and kind of serve our community in that capacity. So I've had that desire, and I can think of no better place than the community that I grew up. You know, I grew up in St. Paris, graduated from Graham, had the opportunity to go away to college. I went to Wittenberg and lived away from the community for a while, which I think is advantageous.
But not too far.
But not too far. Yes, Springfield's not too far. And then moved back about 12 or 13 years ago. My husband, we live on our family farm over in Mechanicsburg and raise our 3 kids there. So I can think of no better place to serve my community than the community that I grew up in and have the opportunity to raise my family in. So I want to make sure that Champaign County remains a great place to live and work and raise a family. And then obviously a skill set. You know, you want that desire and belief in the community, but you want somebody who's qualified. And I feel like I definitely possess the qualifications that someone would want from their county commissioner.
Okay. Well, you know, I followed you a little bit.
Okay.
You know, my dad, spoke highly of you.
That's good
He
to
said
know.
you work with senior citizen groups and you're kind of active around the community.
Yeah.
You're an adjunct professor at Bay University, my alma mater. But if you could just, go in a little bit of your qualifications, what makes you qualified to be county commissioner?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate all the kind words. And, I think there's probably 2 things that really, set me apart from the other candidates. One, I have some strong business experience, which you're hiring the CEO of your county. They're going to make sure the tax dollars are allocated, in the correct manner. They're helping set the agenda for the community. So you're hiring a CEO for the county. You want somebody that has business experience. And I have that. I've run my own business, as you said. I also served as the executive director for the Chamber of Commerce. So I ran the day-to-day operations there, whether it was event planning or recruiting, retaining businesses. Worked with our businesses and throughout Champaign County doing that position. And now, as you said, teaching at Urbana University, teaching in the College of Business, so teaching computer science, business courses, accounting, whatever is needed. So that business experience will translate into a great community servant, community commissioner. And then the other side of that is I'm very community focused. From growing up in the community and serving in our church, serving community dinners, being active in 4-H, 10-year 4-H member as I was growing up in Champaign County, to now serving on a variety of community boards and services. I serve on the Developmental Disabilities Board in Champaign County. I was appointed to that about a year ago. And then very active in our YMCA, which we're fortunate to have in this community, and also involved in our Activate Champaign County, which is a group of organizations that works to promote healthy living for our community and plan a Healthy Kids Day that we have every year. And then obviously very active also in my church here at Messiah Lutheran in Urbana. So take an active role in there, serving as our council president right now. So I think that variety of interest in the community and my dedication, plus my business experience, makes me uniquely qualified to serve as the county commissioner.
Well, you mentioned qualifications and business skills and the CEO, but, this is, Champaign County is unique, and every county is unique in its own way. Each county has a different goal, and kind of, looking back, what challenges do we face in Champaign County today?
I think that's an excellent question. I think that's probably the struggle. We obviously have challenges, but then how do we kind of transcend them into opportunities? is a great place to raise a family. But there are challenges. I think probably the one that comes to everybody's mind, especially in these economic times, are the finances. Every local government, whether you're talking with township trustees, village council, mayors, whomever, kind of the lack of revenue is one, lack of tax dollars coming in, and then also for cuts from the state. So I think probably our most eminent challenge is the financial one in the county. So I think it's going to be, I can offer kind of a fresh perspective from that. I also think I know the families of Champaign County, so I know what families are doing, and that's to deal with some of the economic challenges. That's also what our county has to look at, is how can we be good stewards of the dollars, look at not only increasing revenue, helping people, encouraging people to shop local, keep your tax dollars here, but also looking at our expense side. Are we being efficient and effective with all of the tax dollars? So I'm looking at both sides of those. I think with my background, and like I said, kind of understanding the dynamics and understanding Champaign County from growing up on the west side to living on the east side, I'll be able to represent the county well and be able to do this and address those challenges.
Okay. I'm going to go a little left field here.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
I'm good.
This is a question that I'm pulling out here. Wind turbines. That is a big thing in Champaign County.
It absolutely is.
For or against them, and there's like no in between middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not asking you to take a side or anything.
Okay.
But kind of just, what are your thoughts on not only wind turbines, but renewable energies and the opportunity for renewable energies in Champaign County?
It's a great question. Actually, somebody just the other day, picking up my daughter from basketball practice, somebody asked me about wind turbines as well. So, it is an issue that is impacting both sides of the county. Obviously things on the east side, as well as some things over in St. Paris. So wind is definitely, an issue. I think you can't really say you're for or against them totally. It's a very complex issue. One issue is a private property rights issue, putting something on someone's property that they own. Then you have tax abatement issues. So I think it's very complex. As a country, we have to start looking at our energy usage and where are we getting that. So that's something that has to happen. We have to start having those kinds of dialogue. But I do think the issue, you have to kind of separate it out. We need to look at the turbine issue, then we need to look at abatements. We also need to look at, making sure we're following the law that is set from the state. So I think it's really just kind of addressing all of those parts. The easy way is to say, yes, you're for or against them, but it really is a complex issue, but one that's on the table. And I think it's just a matter of getting, as I was talking to somebody at basketball practice, just saying, let's look at all sides, let's sit down and what is your issue? Is your issue just the wind turbines themselves, or is it the abatement issue? And his was the abatement issue. So, that's a separate thing. So let's kind of separate those and talk about it. But it's definitely something that's on the table. It's there. We're going to have conversations about it.
It's going to keep coming up for some time.
Absolutely.
Until a definite
answer is.
Rules and guidelines are set aside for.
Right. And that's something I think from the county commissioner's perspective as well. They're not making the laws. The legislature is making the laws, and then the county commissioners, they're the ones that are fulfilling whatever is decided at the state level. So, when it comes to a jurisdictional issue, it's not necessarily the county commissioner's position, but they have a role in it, just like we have a role in recruiting business or retaining business. You're still a community leader, so you need to be involved in that process.
Okay. I appreciate your answer.
Yeah.
I thank you for coming on the show.
Well, I thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's always good to have you.
It is. Well, I appreciate the time and the opportunity to share my thoughts. And I also have a website if you want to learn more about me. I also have a kind of a blog about the campaign trail. We've been out knocking on doors and talking to individual voters throughout the county. And it's www.kellyevanswilson.com. So, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, PT.
The Urbana Leader is sponsored in part by the Depot Coffee House, a gathering place for locals, a resting place for bicyclists, and a haven for history and railroad buffs. Located 6 blocks west of Monument Square on Miami Street in Urbana, the coffee house can be found in a refurbished 1890s train station on the Simon Kenton Bike Trail. Free Wi-Fi, fresh baked goods, local artwork, and good conversation can be found every day of the week at the Depot.
For more than 90 years, the Ohio Farm Bureau has provided substantial benefits to farmers and non-farmers alike. Farmers feed, shelter, clothe, and fuel the world. Support Ohio farming by becoming a Champaign County Farm Bureau member or renewing your membership today.